Demographic dynamics, whether fertility, urbanization, migration, or aging, play a central role in the priorities of the states in the sub-region. These issues impact key sectors such as agriculture, youth employment, industrialization, and infrastructure, drivers of social-economic transformations. An ambitious program was launched by UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, to analyze the impact of these dynamics on the GDP and national priorities, while drawing inspiration from public policies and successful programs in other countries. Among the first themes explored, the problem of early marriage and food insecurity emerges as a crucial issue, revealing the deep links between demographic dynamics and social-economical challenges in the sub-region.
Nous avons choisi de nous intéresser d'abord à ce sujet.
We choose to focus first on this subject because there are subjects which strongly influence socio-economic development in this space, in the sub-regional. You know, child marriage literally kills. It kills young girls because many pregnant earlier and die giving birth. It kills the hope of these young girls. It kills the economic growth of these states. The same goes for food insecurity, where we have in the sub-region millions of people, 50 million in 2024, in the sub-region who live with food insecurity. And when we do our projections by 2050, we will have 68 million that we have estimated that will be food insecure, simply because we have population growth that explains that.
Nous avons une croissance démographique qui explique cela.
According to UNICEF, the United Nations Children Fund, early marriage deprives girls of their childhood and opportunities, including their education. In the West and Central Africa, nearly 40% of women aged 20 to 24 were married before the age of 18. This phenomenon is closely linked to poverty, social and gender norms, but also to food insecurity. The latter, which affects around 70% of the population in the region, worsens living conditions, creating a vicious circle. Early marriage and malnutrition thus reinforce each other, leaving young girls trapped in a spiral of precariousness.
As for the advantages supposed or perceived by families or early marriage, we can notably think of a certain material security, especially among poor families, where marriage allows the young girl to settle down. We can think of a certain social security to the extent that marriage still confers identity and social status. But now, on the cost side, there are obviously economic costs, in the sense that early marriage compromises the pursuit of studies and the possibilities of integration into the job market. There are costs that can be emotional. When a young girl marries very early, she is not in a position to negotiate the terms of this partnership. And then there are health costs.
In Benin, the population has more than doubled in 30 years. With more than 66% aged under 24, demographic pressure is exacerbating economic challenges. In 2023, early marriages have particularly affected the department of Atakora, Borgo, Zoo, Uweme, and Collings, where poverty and traditions pushed families to marry off their daughters as early as adolescence. This phenomenon, far from being anecdotal, is for some a desperate response to the difficulties of survival.
First, there is poverty, and poverty is various forms. Illiteracy, because someone who has not evolved in a school, it is certain that he cannot be correctly literate. People even go as far as first or final grade and are not properly literate, because you can give a test. Even more so, someone who left school in class, etc. So it's the drop out of school. It's the question at the same time of perception in terms of health, in terms of behavior to have. It has an impact on all dimensions of social life.
More than 470 kilometers from Cotonou, in the commune of Ndali, department of Bogo, a discrete building hides pungent stories. The GUPS, the single window for social protection, has become a place of hope for those who come to denounce abuses and seek justice. Under the supervision of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Microfinance, this service strives to improve the lives of the most vulnerable. Collaborating with local and international partners, GUPS offers immediate support and works for the sustainable solutions in order to change the daily lives of the fragile populations.
Il y a eu des mises à disposition des registres de demande de mariage.
Marriage application registers were made available, given that the marriages that are most celebrated in our area are religious marriages organized by imams. There were registers which were deposited at the level of the cities of celebration, whether at the level of the mosque or at the level of the Fulani camps. And what was recommended to these imams or alfas who celebrate marriages in that before the parties, before a marriage is authorized, it is necessary to ensure that the people who wish to marry bring their adolescents, and there were ensure that are the people actually over 18 years old, as Beninese law requires, if they are actually 8 years old. And there you record all the information in your register so that we at the same time of follow-up can see the types of marriages that you have organized, how the marriage requests were rejected and what the reason were. It is due to lack of age, or it is because there was another conflict which prevented the celebration of this marriage. So, we involve religious leaders, traditional leaders in the fight against forced marriage in the area of Ndali.
That morning, we were unable to meet the victims of early marriage. Often rejected by society, they hide in the fields or isolated places to escape a forced return to marriage. Fear fueled by social and cultural taboos prevent them from expressing themselves. In addition to listening, GUPS also participates in the empowerment of girls through training such as sewing. In Cotonou, the capital of Benin, the Institute of the Daughters of Mary Help of Christians of the Celestial Sisters of John Bosco is a refuge for young girls, victims of gender-based violence. At the IFMA level, we work in several areas: education, protection, and professional training. In terms of protection, we have 2 child protection reception centers specifically dedicated to girls, and we have one which welcomes teenage mothers following sexual violence, forced marriages, and early marriages. In the second center, it is all these girls, in fact, who have experienced all types of abuses, including economic exploitation. At Maison du Soleil, a shelter founded in 2011, young girls broken by forced marriages find a chance to be reborn. Here, they benefit from psychosocial support, education, and a new perspective on the future. Among them, 2 teenage girls, anonymous for their safety, share a heartbreaking story. Married at 16 against their will to older men in arrangements sealed by their fathers, they saw their freedom sacrificed for money or benefits. Faced with this imposed union, their rebellion was often stifled by violence. At 16, my father sent me to another village, claiming that I would learn farm work there. There, I understood that he had in reality promised me a non-consensual marriage. Stunned and terrified, I ended up fleeing. With the help of a social worker, I found refuge on the side of the road where I met a commissioner. Meanwhile, the authorities arrested the man I was promised to. He demanded that the debt of 1 million paid to my parents be repaid to him. I don't know if this was done, but the social worker gave me to a reception center, and since then, I have been taken care of here. I was 16 years old and living in Port Novo with my sister when my life changed. My father asked me to return to the village, and I discovered that a woman was planning my arranged marriage. I refused, so he demanded that my mother deprive me of food. I worked in a hair salon, and it was my boss who fed me. One day, my father took me on a motorcycle and then disappeared. The driver dropped me off at the house of a man who told me that I was his wife. I was trapped. I ended up fleeing, pregnant, without knowing where to go. Thank God, police officers and social workers rescued me. The court convicted the man presented as my husband, who is now in prison, and I received love and support here. Betrayed, broken but determined, these women found a glimmer of hope after their fight. Supported by neighbors, police officers, or social workers, their ordeal-filled path led them to this center where their wounds are no longer burdens, but the starting point of a new life. The arrival of the school canteen has greatly improved the lives of mothers and children. I can now do my activities without worrying about preparing lunch. Before, I had to go shopping, run to come and cook before going back, and sometimes I even had no means to prepare. Today, I am happy to see my daughters rushing to school where they can study and eat. In Benin, early marriage is a challenge to which the government is striving to provide concrete solutions to improve the fate of young girls. Through ambitious policies such as strengthening laws, community awareness, and specific programs to ensure access to education and nutrition, tangible progress is emerging. These efforts are part of Benin's 2060 Development Vision, an ambitious strategic framework that aims to promote sustainable and inclusive development.
Nous avons un cadre de contestation qui existe, qui est animé par le ministre d'État.
We have a protest framework that exists, which is led by the Minister of State responsible for development and the coordination of government action, and the Minister of State responsible for the economy and finance. And this protest framework, which meets twice a year, allows the government to interact directly with the TFP, total factor productivity, which are represented at the national level. Besides that, we have permanent, inclusive discussion and joint actions carried out with the various partners, in particular with UNFPA during World Population Days. We have a week of raising awareness among population together on issues and gender-based violence, on issues of early marriage, on reproductive health, and also on women's empowerment. We had also, with other agencies of the United Nations system, co-produced certain documents, such as the Holistic Social Protection Policy, which was revised with the arrival of new challenges, such as climate change and security issues.
De nouveaux défis tels que le changement climatique et les questions sécuritaires.
The synergy of action between the Beninese government and its development partners constitutes an essential lever to accelerate change and guarantee a better future for younger generations.
La réparation d'une victime, ce n'est pas de lui trouver un abri.
Reparation for a victim is not about finding them shelter, finding them food, helping them continue to learn. And so Benin, looking at this as one of the weaknesses of its care system, decided at the highest level, with the Ministry of Social Affairs, the INF, the Ministry of Health, we are currently working on erection of 3 reception and support centers, which have a role when these people are abandoned, to welcome them, to soothe them, to treat them psychologically, and to help them become independent. Benin is modeling a jail that will have all individual dormitories or dormitories for families, a capacity building system inside, and create space also for psychologists, doctors, to continue their work at the beyond the legal and judicial response.
Au-delà de la réponse juridique et judiciaire.
Le gouvernement
The government also has a methodology that is clear, which concerns issues that we consider to be high priorities, such as children and girls. The government wants to become self-sufficient over time, so at last works with partners but takes steps so that as implementation progresses, they become fully financed by the national budget. And this is what was done for school curtains, initially supported by WFP World Food Program, and today entirely financed by the government, and even its management becomes autonomous for the government. We recently launched the initiative project on child nutrition, and there too the government is arming itself so that after the round table, which will be held to mobilize resources, that the gradual implementation over the course of 5 years is entirely financed by the national budget.
Among the initiatives put in place to combat early marriage and encourage the education of young girls, the Dowime Public School, located in the commune of Dija in the heart of the Zoo Department, illustrates the concrete impact of these efforts. This school has had a functional school canteen since 2019.
In 2019, the canteen arrived. There were 162 of us, 58 girls, but today we have 96 girls. It has really evolved, and this has meant that girls are kept in schools. Before, some time later, they give up. The marriage is forced because she has already gone to the countryside. She has already married. But currently, the girls stay.
Near the large mango tree that shades the schoolyard, life is bustling. While the children, concentrated, recite their lessons in the classroom, a silent ballet plays outside. In a large kitchen setup in the courtyard, women wearing scarves and blue aprons are busy around steaming pots. At break time, the students take turns washing their hands in rows, impatient for lunch. Here, each shared plate is one step closer to breaking the circle of early marriages and offering hope for a better future to the great pleasure of parents. The arrival of the school canteen has greatly improved the lives of mothers like me and children. I can now do my activities without worrying about preparing lunch. Before, I had to go shopping, run to make food before returning, and sometimes I even had no way to prepare it. Today, I am happy to see my daughters rushing to school where they can study and eat. Plus, we added eggs to their diet, which is really great.
Les parents n'ont pas la possibilité de garder les enfants.
Parents do not have the possibility of looking after the children, of supporting them. But when the school curtain came, we noticed that parents were stating to send the majority of their children to school. Today, there is an increase in the enrollment rate in our school. We therefore have an interest in thanking development partners, especially our government.
Notre gouvernement.
WPF played a key role in the success of the school canteens program, carried out in the collaboration with the government. These, thanks to its financial support and regular supply of essential foodstuff, the results are already visible. Better nutrition, increased attendance, and a significant impact on schooling, particularly for young girls.
Les cantines scolaires, la mise en œuvre.
The implementation of the school canteen on the part of the government was entrusted by the World Food Program in 2017. At the time we took charge of the implementation of this program, we had a coverage rate of 31% of public primary schools, or around 350,000 students. The year that followed, in 2018, we went from a coverage rate of 31% to 51%. In 2023, we began transfers of the program to the government, as was initially planned at the time of the agreement. With the capacity building that we gave to the government structure. So in 2023, we were at a coverage rate of more than 75%, which represents approximately 5,709 schools and more than 1,400,000 students. When you take 1,400,000 people, that seems small, especially when you relate that to countries that have larger populations. But you should know that these 1,400,000 students who benefit from the school canteen represents more than 10% of the total population of the country. This is where it becomes important. So this program is the National Integrated School Feeding Program. Its name is a whole program in itself because it is an integrated program which involves nutrition, health, education, of course, transport, and energy.
Faced with the urgency of the challenges linked to early marriage and food insecurity, responses must be ambitious and integrated.
Nous devons, au niveau programmatique, donner la priorité à l'éducation.
We must programmatically prioritize education, which is a powerful tool to protect girls and unlock opportunities. We must make investments in sustainable livelihoods and strong social safety nets to help families meet their needs without resorting to harmful practices like child marriage.
Nous devons travailler aussi sur les normes sociales avec les détenteurs d'enjeux.
We also need to work on social standards with stakeholders, but first and foremost, there are macroeconomic issues and development planning issues. This is why population dynamics must be reflected in population policies and linked to these vital sectors of food security, climate change, poverty reduction, and even security, peace and security. And when we look in our space and in the world, yes, there are solutions.
Dans notre espace et dans le monde, oui, il y a des solutions.
Despite the challenges, inspiring initiatives are transforming the daily lives of many young girls in Benin. Between the fight against early marriage and access to education, shelters like GUPS, Maison du Soleil, or school canteen programs offer tangible hope for building a better future. Testimonies and concrete actions remind us that the change is possible with synergy between communities, institutions, and partners.